Boy, I meant to do this review much earlier, but a lot of stuff got in the way, and I injured myself, and I'm in excruciating pain. But the other problem is I don't have a lot to say other than the Penguin Show is really good. So it's like, what can I tell you? I mean, I could go point by point through the plot, but yeah, you should watch it. It's a good show, and it even makes elements of that crappy Batman movie work, and the end of the Batman movie with the flooding and everything plays very prominently in this episode, and actually looks much better than it did in the movie as far as the absolute horror and the destruction that resulted, and you get a good viewpoint of just how many people were affected by it. And most notably in this episode is more centric around the Penguin's young protege Victor, and we see where he was at the time that happened, and well, it's not too much of a spoiler. His family was wiped out by it, and that's put him in the position that he's in. He was up on the roof of the building with his girlfriend when the flooding happened, so he was safe up there from it all, and not so much for the family. So it's an indication where he is, who he could have been, and now here he is stuck with his new father, the Penguin. But he wants to do right by his girl. She wants to leave town, says she's tired of living in a FEMA camp and all this sort of thing, and is leaving for California and is asking him to go with her. And he's like, yeah, that's what I need to do, but how do I let the boss down and all that sort of stuff? So it plays out like that. Meanwhile, the Penguin, getting close to Sophia is all a part of his manipulations, and that's performed out very well, and what their overall plan is, and that sort of thing. And then how it ends, well, it's not too surprising. But nevertheless, another part of it is this is when you've got a good crime story going, even though there's rarely any real heroes in it, nobody's good or anything like that. But man, are these guys hilarious, especially the Penguin. He pulls this stunt on Johnny Vitti that's pretty funny and all that. And this is the episode where he's actually called the Penguin, and it's pretty much what you would expect as to why and all that. It's, pretty obvious. But it works out very well, as Vitti is just completely caught in this episode and in the Penguin's pocket at this point, begrudgingly. But what are you going to do? And so there it is. But the way it ends is like, well, boy, out of the frying pan into the fire. How does he get out of this one? And well, stay tuned and that sort of thing. So it's a show that can do its character studies and that sort of thing, and you get more background on Victor and what have you. And yet at the same time, it's still moving forward. There's still action in it. There's still development, plot-wise, and so on, while balancing all these other spinning plates or what have you. As the writers have to juggle this, and it's cohesive and gets to the point. And that's in this day and age, with a lot of shows that don't even try to do that. It's a refreshing bit of achievement and development on the show to see and appreciate. And of course, interesting coming out of a movie that I thought was pretty bad. But this is much better. Also, of interest to note, after the stellar success of the Joker movie, only to be followed by the polar opposite, apparently. I haven't seen the film yet. And it's shocking that this collapse happened based on what I'm hearing, what the movie did and whatnot. And it's just crazy. And just the concept of, you could do these side projects on different comic book characters, focusing on them and that sort of thing, and taking them out of that element, provided you're creative at it and have a good knack or angle to it and whatnot. And apparently that was not the case for a sequel to a movie that was one and done. And not everything can be a franchise. The template's an idea for it, I suppose. You can continue and, well, they did. Because that's essentially what the Penguin is this character study overall of the Penguin himself. Albeit he's still a very much, a supervillain character in the Batman world. But it's just so grounded and whatnot, and you could explore that. But that's what it's done very successfully. And it shows that, it done well and done right. There's potential there. Even though, this one is still very much in the relationship to it. I mean, there was a Bruce Wayne in the Joker movie, but it's like, it's just a nod to that. He was never really the Joker or anything like that. It was just this take on this broken man beaten down and reacts to his misery very violently and goes very wrong in that. And that's it. That's the story. Whereas here, what can we do with this criminal character and approach him in a way that's a little different from the typical Batman comic book stories. Although in these days in the years, it's long since been established that the Penguin is this mobster guy. He runs the Iceberg Lounge and all that, so he's more akin to that than the guy with the umbrella guns and all that sort of stuff from the past. And so it's easier to couch it in both. You could do a Joker-centric movie that is set in the Batman world, with Batman playing a part in it, and you could still achieve some level there that's a step above, a comic book fight, which is more of what the point is of the superheroes got to take down the villain and all that, and you just got to figure out the different trappings that makes it interesting. Beyond that, but that's essentially what they did. So the idea of a character study of a comic book villain is not totally or shouldn't be considered to be abandoned now. That's not so much the mistake. The mistake was in the execution on the sequel that probably never should have been made anyway, even if he had a better idea. Because at best you would have, it's all right, it's okay. Boy, it doesn't match the first one, and that's the kind of thing. And a pursuit of a sequel, I would think would be, can I outdo the original? And of course, more times than not, that never happens. Or can you do a sequel that stands on its own? It's attached, but it can stand on its own in its own form and what have you, which the only thing I can think of is like Aliens as opposed to Alien, that kind of thing. But nevertheless, the concept of pursuing the villain, probably someone should have taken up the mantle on that and pursued some other character. But it looks like just, I don't know, by accident. That's kind of what happened with the Penguin. And right now, the Penguin is achieving greatness, whereas Todd Phillips' Joker pooped the bed. That appears to be the case there. I'll have to reserve judgment totally when I get a chance to see it, but odds are, yeah, I'm not gonna. I'll suddenly have a different take and say, hey, everybody got it wrong or whatever, but it doesn't look like it. So anyway, yeah, so I managed to make past 10 minutes here. But conclusion, this many episodes in, The Penguin appears to be a really great show, and I'm enjoying it.